Everyone says you need to love yourself. You've done everything right, you followed the instructions, and yet, for some reason, you still don't like your life. So here's the real question. If you're trying so hard, why isn't it working? Watch this video until the end, and you'll learn why your brain resists the idea of self-love, how the self-love industry makes you feel even worse, what to do instead of useless practices that only deepen your sense of not being enough. Maybe the problem isn't that you don't love yourself. Maybe the problem is that you don't even know who you are. What's really behind self-loathing? Anna's story reveals a deeper layer of the issue. I always thought I didn't love myself because I wasn't successful or beautiful enough. But one day, in therapy, I realized, I just don't know who I am. I spent my whole life trying to meet other people's expectations, and somewhere along the way, I lost touch with my true self. When people say, I don't love myself, it's often about something much deeper. It can stem from a loss of connection with the real self, a mismatch between self-image and external expectations, a deep sense of not being enough, fear of being oneself, a fundamental lack of trust in the world. And here lies the first key to change. Before we can try to love ourselves, we need to understand who we are supposed to love. Who is this self we're being asked to embrace? This creates a paradox. We can't love ourselves until we truly know ourselves. But we're afraid to discover our true selves, because we're not sure we'll be able to love what we find. Why popular methods only make things worse. Love yourself is one of the most popular, and at the same time, the most useless, pieces of advice in modern psychology. It's like telling a depressed person to just be happy, or an anxious person to just relax. Not only do these suggestions fail to help, but they often make things worse by adding pressure and a sense of failure. Typical recommendations for developing self-love usually include giving yourself compliments in the mirror, doing something nice for yourself, making a list of your achievements, practicing positive affirmations, taking care of your appearance. The problem is that all these actions operate on a surface level. It's like trying to cure pneumonia with cough drops. It might offer brief relief, but it doesn't address the real issue. This highlights the core paradox. You can't love yourself until you accept yourself. But you can't accept yourself while trying to change in order to be worthy of love. It's a vicious cycle with no exit as long as we stay trapped in this way of thinking. The deep mechanism of self-perception. Our relationship with ourselves is shaped long before we even hear the concept of self-love. It's a complex system that includes a fundamental sense of safety and acceptance, early relationship experiences, cultural and societal conditioning, personal history of successes and failures, seeing ourselves reflected in others' reactions. This system doesn't change just because we say, I love myself, or buy new clothes. A deeper approach is needed. The neuroscience of self-perception. On a neurobiological level, our relationship with ourselves is shaped through the complex interaction of different brain systems. The limbic system assigns emotional significance to experiences. The prefrontal cortex forms a conscious self-image. The insular cortex integrates bodily sensations with emotions. Mirror neurons attune us to how others perceive us. Any meaningful change in self-perception must engage all these levels, not just the cognitive, as with affirmations, or behavioral, as with self-care actions. When someone forcefully tries to convince themselves to love themselves, it triggers cognitive dissonance. If their inner dialogue has been self-critical for decades, simply repeating, I am amazing, won't rewire neural connections. How the self-love industry makes you feel even worse. Modern self-love culture has been turned into a commercial product that not only fails to solve the problem but actually deepens the feeling of inadequacy, creating an unattainable ideal of self-love. In the past, marketing sold the idea, you're not beautiful enough, buy this cream. Now, it sells the idea of inner imperfection. You don't love yourself enough? You haven't fully accepted yourself? Then something is wrong with you. Complete, absolute self-love is presented as the new norm, but this ideal is inherently unreachable, because the brain is wired to always find something to criticize. You're not loving yourself the right way. The self-love industry carries hidden expectations. If you truly love yourself, you should be energetic, positive, grateful, and radiate harmony. But no one can feel constant self-satisfaction. Mood, hormonal balance, and stress responses aren't under conscious control. This leads to secondary self-criticism, not just "I don't love myself," but "I don't even know how to love myself properly." Practical steps toward change. Instead of trying to force self-love, a more effective path begins with self-acceptance. Accepting that you don't love yourself right now. Accepting all of your feelings, including the negative ones. Accepting that change takes time. Focus on more concrete and achievable steps. 1. Rebuilding connection with yourself. Regularly ask yourself, what do I want, even in small things? Pay attention to how your body reacts in different situations. Notice when you do something just because you should. Learn to distinguish between your own desires and other people's expectations. 2. Developing inner support. Learn to speak to yourself as you would to a friend. Create an inner space of safety. Practice self-acceptance, especially in difficult moments. 3. Establishing healthy boundaries. Start with small no's in safe situations. Notice when you want to say no, but end up saying yes. Learn to express your needs in a gentle but clear way. Stand up for your needs. Respect your own limits. 4. Building a sense of competence. Set achievable goals. Recognize and acknowledge your accomplishments. Learn to extract lessons from failures. A new understanding of self-love. Maybe the real secret is that self-love is not a goal but a byproduct of a healthy relationship with yourself. It arises naturally when we learn to be honest with ourselves. Develop the ability to be present with all parts of our experience. Create an internal space of safety. Learn to respect our boundaries and needs. In the end, maybe the real question isn't, how do I love myself? But, how do I build a genuine, honest, and supportive relationship with myself? And when that happens, self-love emerges as a natural consequence, rather than something to be forced. Antony's story illustrates this well. I stopped waiting for the moment when I would finally love myself. Instead, I started building a relationship with myself the way I would with a close friend, with patience, curiosity, and care. Some days, that relationship is better, some days it's worse, but I no longer demand any specific feelings from myself. Conclusion. The journey of every person who has learned to build a healthy relationship with themselves is unique. But there is a common thread. It is always a shift from trying to love yourself to developing real, honest self-connection. From fighting yourself to engaging in dialogue. From chasing an ideal to accepting reality. Maybe instead of asking, how do I love myself? It's better to start with simpler questions. Who am I? What do I want? What truly matters to me? And then allow the answers to come gradually, without pressure, without rush. Because true self-love doesn't begin with trying to change yourself. It begins with a willingness to know yourself as you are. And the truth is, self-love is not a goal or a final destination. It's a relationship where you are your own friend, not your harshest judge. And maybe the most important thing is not learning to love yourself, but realizing that you never actually needed to. If these deep topics resonate with you, if you're tired of empty self-help advice and genuinely want to understand how your mind works, subscribe. Here, we don't just talk about self-improvement. We explore what it truly means to be human, without cliches and oversimplifications. And now, the real question. Have you ever noticed that the more you work on yourself, the more it feels like something is still missing? Why is it that as soon as you reach a new level, another goalpost appears, just out of reach? Drop a comment. Which idea from this video resonated with you the most? Have you ever tried to love yourself, following advice that didn't work? What was the most useless self-love tip you've ever received?